Welcome to Entrepreneur Voices, the IEC podcast, where entrepreneurs and business leaders share their insights and success stories. In today's episode, host Renee Oswald sits down with Mike Hammond, managing partner at both MD Nursery and Landscaping and Signal Relief. Mike is another serial entrepreneur starting a variety of businesses, including pest control companies and a dish network dealership. Let's get started.
Well, welcome, Mike Hammond, to this show today. We're so grateful to have you here. Thank you for spending your time with us. And honestly, Mike, I don't know where to start. You have your hands in so very many things. And since this is Voices of Entrepreneurs podcast, I would just like you to kind of go back to the beginning and give us an idea about why did you become an entrepreneur? Wherever in the very beginning of this did you say, hey, I want to own businesses and do all of these great things?
It's probably not one event. So when I started going to Rick's, I was actually the last graduating class of Rick's and the first
still call
of
it
BYUI.
Rick's. Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to be a seminary teacher, so I wasn't an entrepreneur at that point. And then it actually started with me, and you'll notice my first businesses were all in summer sales.
Yeah, right.
So I had a roommate who was a summer sales guy, and he recruited me to do pest control, and I ended up doing really well. So at the point, I was one of the top guys in the entire nation all the way through college, and so I did really well doing summer sales. And I graduated in 2003 from BYU, Idaho.
Okay. And
the company I was with hired me to be their CEO, and I did that for a year.
The pest company?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I instantly didn't want to work for anyone after that.
Yeah.
Like I hated it. I hated that year. So towards the end of that year, I started trying to figure out what I could go do. I was non-competed basically nationwide in the pest business. Uh-huh. So then I thought there was an opportunity with satellite. And so we started in 2004, September of 2004, I started right after the summer ended for the pest guys. I opened up a satellite retailer. And we just became a dish network retailer at the time in 2004. And it was with my best friend from college, Nick Gordon, who might be hearing this. He does solar out in Arkansas now. But we started our first company in 2004. And that one got huge. It went really, really well. And so
before you go on,
yeah.
You guys are two college kids. Like, how did you even think that you could do this? Or is that the beauty of this? You didn't know what you didn't know, and so you just kind of dove in.
No, what's interesting, doing sales, you start over every day at zero. No one's paying you. You either make nothing or you earn what you basically reap, right?
Okay.
Every single day.
Okay.
And I think I just realized over those 3 years that I was going door to door that I could do stuff. I could create my own income. I didn't need people to pay me. I liked the freedom, and I liked being able to control my schedule, and I liked being able to work as hard as I wanted to and get rewarded for it. Like, I couldn't stand the idea. What I hated about being an employee is I could work 12 hours and make the same money I could work if I worked 8 hours.
Yeah.
And that drove me nuts. And I've always been confident, but I just saw that I didn't need a company to help me be successful. And so we just went off on our own, and we were convinced, to be honest, it was harder than I thought. I thought I was a paper millionaire when I started my company. I was going to be worth $1 million year one.
Okay.
I think everyone's done that,
of
right?
Course,
and then
yes.
Reality hits you, and you're like, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought.
Yeah, and that's a big number.
Yeah. And so... yeah, we were excited. Like I was actually more miserable that year as an employee than I've ever been on my own. So, yeah, I just, in 2004, we took off. I had a lot of money saved up from all those summers.
Yeah.
So wasn't that stressed in that area, but, I didn't pay myself for the next 2 years. I never took a paycheck for the next 2 years. Because and you'll learn this, well, you already know it because you're an entrepreneur, but I think the number one thing that causes businesses to fail is impatience and greed. They take the money out of the business too early.
Right.
And it takes a long time for a business to catch enough momentum that you can start pulling cash out of it. People just aren't patient enough. They don't wait long enough. Mm-hmm. And by 2010, we were the largest retailer in the United States. So we had Dish and DirecTV trying to buy us. And it was 2010 when I first started paying myself more than probably $180,000 a year. So we were keeping everything in the company, especially if it's growing. We were throwing everything back into the company.
Because you could see what it was going to do, once you reinvested. But I find that advice really interesting, though, because don't we start businesses to make money? Like, we got to eat and do other things. Yeah. So can you not start a business without having a large nest egg?
Well, dude, again, you'll as you go to school, they teach you that the number one reason businesses fail is they're underfunded.
Right.
And it's so funny how, I think entrepreneurs start businesses because they're motivated to be high earners. They don't want to settle. I think that's probably the motive.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is how long it takes. Like, every year that I was still paying myself, after 2 years, I gave myself a salary of $70,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And it stayed that way for 6 years.
Got it. So you can, pay your bills and kind of live on it. But
I was paying taxes on $2 million plus every year. And I barely had enough cash to keep growing the business.
Yeah, wow.
Like, and then people don't realize it, right? That they're like, hey, raise taxes. The rich need to pay. Well, they don't. An entrepreneur, a business owner gets it that 30% of taxes is like 80% of your actual free cash flow.
Yeah, right. Because you've got other things going on. Yeah.
And so if you're paying yourself more, that other 20% disappears quick. And so you just have to be patient. You got to know how to reinvest into the business and it does pay off. I actually believe it always does in the end, but you have to be patient enough to get to the point where when the business has everything it needs to grow and there's leftover, and that's what you take. Mm-hmm. And people usually don't wait for the leftover.
Yeah, right.
And it takes a while. Mm-hmm. Like, every one of my businesses have taken a while before I feel like I've gotten to that point. I mean, MD is a perfect example. We bought and we'll get into it, but we bought a landscaping company actually 2 weeks before COVID hit. So
wow.
And it was a $20+ million purchase. And we 5X'd it. So we're 500% bigger now. But Brian, who's my partner in that, I have a partner who bought it into it with me. We have not paid ourselves $1 yet.
Why?
In those 5 years. Every dollar's going back into the company. Mm-hmm. More equipment, more growth, higher end employees. You're investing into the company. And now we have VC firms coming after us. We've had 3 or 4 different offers to purchase us. And all of those offers could retire us.
Sure.
Right? That's where we would get our return. But the company would never have been able to 5X if we took any money out. Like, right. We've used every dollar to put back into the company and back into the employees. And so I think it's thinking long-term. I think sometimes people get too short-term focused.
So how did you know that back when you were doing the whole Dish, because you were young and this probably, I don't know if this just came naturally to you or not, but how did you know that this was the way it was going to be successful?
So I was a sales guy, obviously.
Yeah.
But my background was accounting. I was an accounting major here.
Okay.
The reason I graduated in finance is because they required an accounting internship, which I was like, no chance. I was doing an internship when I had my own businesses going. So I changed it to finance at the end and graduated. But my background in accounting was strong, and I understood the numbers. And I always was able to understand what would happen to the cash flow and what I needed and what it took to have a healthy balance sheet. Yeah. And so I've always was running the ratios. I was always looking at my P&L and balance sheets. And what's funny is when I bought MD from Mike, his name was Mike too, he never looked at a P&L. Like, he looked at his bank account, right? And that's how a lot of small business owners are, is they look at their bank account and they're like, oh, I've got money in the bank. I'm doing good.
Yep.
But that doesn't give you a clear understanding. I feel like the language of business, like, more important than marketing or anything, is actually accounting and understanding the ratios and, how to have a healthy company, what it's going to take.
And managing by statistics, instead of just by what's in your bank account.
100%.
Yeah. Well, I can certainly relate to that as a small business owner. And we didn't know anything coming in. And so it was just managed off of what was in we've got money, it's going to be okay. But long term, that's not a really good plan.
No, you can't get big that way. Yeah. And if you do, it's luck usually, because you'll outgrow your skill set. You'll get to a point where you just can't manage your business that way. And I think a lot of people that go down, they are doing it that way, and then they get so big that it doesn't work, and they lose control of the ins and the outs. And I mean, it's only 1 or 2% shifts towards overpaying for certain things, and all of a sudden your profitability is gone. When you get big, you can shift profitability so quick. And so, and I've always invested into really high-end employees and CFOs. I pay high money for really good CFOs.
Did you know that back when you had Dish?
No. It was, it probably took me 6 years to figure that out. In fact, I figured it out when we started launching our pest control company. So 2004, we started Dish. By 2010, we were the largest retailer in the U.S. 2009, I decided to go to MBA school.
Okay.
And because of that, I had to take a step back a little bit from my business. And I actually started to really think. And what I realized when my first hire was a really high-end CFO. And I realized he was way better at it than me. And then I started actually using that with CEOs. I'm not even the CEO of any of my companies now. At this point, everyone has different skill sets. And I've noticed that my skill set is actually, in the first 2 years of a business, I'm awesome. And then I get really bored.
You love the get up and go, get it churning, and then
it gets really boring to me once it becomes mundane. And so, but there's guys that love that.
Yeah.
And so, I go after them. And to give you an example, so my business partner right now that's buying, so I bought MD with Brian, and then we bought Overhead Doors.
Okay.
Overhead Doors was the largest garage door installer in Eastern Idaho.
Okay.
And he made a ton of money when he ran it out of his house. But the guy moved to Rigby on the freeway with that new building, got on new employees. And there's a perfect example of what we're talking about, because all of a sudden he had no cash. He got stressed out. He's like, oh my gosh. And so he started hiring and looking for cheaper employees. Right. So then you're hiring guys that are high school dropouts, a lot of them, to be your installers and vice versa. And you're not bringing in a CFO because you can't afford it. And you're not. And the business just started to fall apart. And so by the time he came to me and Brian, he was not sleeping at night. He was stressed out of his mind because the business was struggling, and he couldn't understand it because he made so much money when he ran it out of his house. But what we realized, and get into the financials, is it's very much what I'm talking about. They managed the business by looking at their bank account. They didn't understand what was really going on. And they also didn't understand, dude, if I grow, I'm not making money right now, but if I grow the business, so MD's interesting, and I'm jumping all over.
It's okay.
MD was a $20+ million purchase, right? Day one, we walk in, and our CFO comes to us, and she was like, I need $400,000 today, or we're not going to make payroll. And we're like, what?
How can this be? Yeah. This is a $20 million business.
They've been making money for 12 years. Well, come to find out, they actually hadn't. They were reclassifying things. She was an elementary ed grad and became the CFO. So again, the same issue that I'm dealing with. And when we corrected the P&L and balance sheet, once we figured it out,
it wasn't making.
They lost $400,000 that year.
Yeah.
And your mortgage payment at that time is close to $100,000 a month, because it's 200 acres and a huge building.
Yes.
It's massive, right?
Yes.
Plus your employees, our overhead was $200,000 every 2 weeks at that point. So most people would freak out and be like, I'm done, right? I'm out.
What have I gotten myself into here? Yeah.
And Brian and I kind of freaked out for 3 days.
Rightly so.
Yeah. But what we ended up doing is we pulled open the P&L and the balance sheet. We looked at our fixed assets and our fixed expenses. We looked at what our margins were on a job, taking out the fixed expenses, how much was each job bringing on average. And it's like that 17, 18% like a normal landscape company, right? And we realized the only way this business makes money is to double volume. So we went to the bank, we borrowed $7 million more, and we told Jared to take every job. We were turning down half our jobs at that point. And so he started taking every job. Well, that year we grew 75% and we hit break even. We actually made, I think, $500,000 or $600,000 that year. And the next year we invested more and we continued to grow. And the margins never changed, but the volume overtook the fixed overhead. And all of a sudden it went from a business that was losing 400, 500 grand a year to making 1 million, 3 million the next year, 5 million the next year. And it's been growing, right?
Yeah,
and so I think a lot of people not understanding how to figure that stuff out on the P&L. They would have backed up, tried to sue the guy they just bought the company for, had the bank foreclosing on them.
Yeah,
and it's
right.
like, I'm actually a strong believer, and you'll kind of understand this just because when you become a business owner, you kind of start running in circles with them, entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And I find they'll teach you in school that 2 out of 10 businesses make it, 8 will fail.
Right.
But every single successful entrepreneur that I know, the Jared Chappells, like the guys who just have made it big, it's crazy because they have I swear it's the opposite. It's 8 out of 10 of everything they do actually succeeds. Mm-hmm. So I think we misread that completely. I think it's 2 out of 10 entrepreneurs have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Because you have to learn how to look at things objectively, think long-term, and push your way through your problems. You can't give up. You can't fold. You can't you can't get overwhelmed. You have to keep a clear head and find your way through those problems. And most of the time you can work your way through it. And so,
well, and that fear is so real to people, you can just shut down in that fear of the what ifs and everything. But like you said, the only way to get to the other side is to push through it. Yes. Or I guess you can give up.
You can give up. And I did lose sleep. It was stressful, right? I'm like, how are we going to get out of it? We have to grow.
Yeah.
And you put your faith in your people. And
was that the first business that kind of had done that to you? I mean, because obviously, even if we
everything
go
else,
back,
I went from scratch. I never had experienced that.
Yeah,
so
got it.
I'd always been conservative, kept my money in my businesses. I'd never experienced that. And MD was the first one. And then what was funny is we bought overhead garage door. And it ended up being the same story. And I don't think either business owner was dishonest.
Yeah, right. They were doing the best they can.
But the P&L on the balance sheets were lies. But they had no idea. And so I think both of them were instances actually of people who just didn't have the skill set to be that big.
Yeah, right.
And they outgrew their skill set. And then all of a sudden it just becomes a mess. I mean, Mike's who I bought MD from. I remember when I bought it, he was like, dude, this business makes so much money. It's so awesome. But for some reason, man, I just don't have cash flow. He couldn't figure it out. He's like, how am I making $2 million, but I don't have cash?
Yeah.
Instead, he's losing, right? But he just didn't have that skill set. And so you can imagine the stress they're going through when they can't figure it out.
It's just always you're just hanging on by your fingernails the whole time.
And so, again, I'm not like Todd Peterson, right, worth $1 billion, but I feel like that skill set of being able to understand a P&L and a balance sheet has served me very well in my businesses.
And it feels like to me, just in the way that you talk, it came pretty natural to you. And you didn't really struggle with I don't understand how this stuff
I've never
goes
had
together.
to do homework with accounting or math. It's always been easy.
Well, there is something to be said about people who are wired that way.
Yeah.
Because not everybody can see it as clearly.
Yes.
So let's go back to pest control. So you did the dish thing, and then you were like, oh, I don't have my non-compete anymore. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
That's kind of what happened, yeah.
Yeah, and I know this business. And so tell us about how that happened.
So this is another interesting story, right? It'll go right along with what I'm telling you. So we decided to open up 5 branch locations in our first year. And we already have dish going everywhere at this point. This is 2009. So I had a different roommate who also was a pest guy who had a tiny little office. He had maybe 50 customers in Utah, but he had his licenses and he could get licensed everywhere. So I bought his company. It was called, I can't even remember. It was a BioGuard back then. We bought his company and
that's what my paper says, BioGuard.
Yeah. And so it was basically nothing. We were buying him and his licensing. And then we decided to open up 5 locations, Utah being one of them, and 4 other locations.
And what does a pest control location look like? Is it just...
So you have your branch office. You have to buy about, for summer cells, 4 to 5 pickups.
Okay.
You got to get your cages and all your chemical, and you got to buy a branch manager, and you got to hire your techs.
Okay.
And then you got to go out and recruit your sales guys.
Yeah, right.
And so we had those 4 locations. And outside of the money I'd already put down, I needed about $1 million more to get them launched. And Zions Bank at the time gave me a loan and said, yeah, we'll do it.
You're worth the risk.
So we hire everyone and we send them out. And this is like 2009, 2010 when it first launched. I'm in the middle of school at the U. That's where I got my MBA.
Okay.
And I get an email from Zions Bank. Sorry, with all the restrictions in the economy, because that's when everything went crazy.
Right.
We're not going to be able to do your loans for your business. And I'm like, what? I've already got the trucks purchased. I've already got employees hired. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
So Ray Talbot, he's the CEO of, those pigskin potato chips. He's out in North Carolina. He's been their CEO forever, but he was in that class and he saw me turn ghost white. So I remember he came over in the middle of class and he's like, Mike, you need to go out in the hall. And I go out and I'm like ready to throw up.
What am I going to do?
Dude, I have 100 sales reps already recruited. I've got all those employees. I'd moved to different locations. Like the responsibility. That's the one thing as an entrepreneur, you have this responsibility, right?
Ever present. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, dude, I'm going to let all these guys down. I'm screwing over like 200 people. I'm just overwhelmed. Ray's like, why are you here? Quit feeling sorry for yourself and go raise the money. And I'm like, you're right. And I walk in and I close my computer, stick it in my bag, and I walked out of class and I just started beating down every person I knew that made money. Mm-hmm. And this old farmer, Wendell, gave me a check for $850,000 with no contract.
Great? Wow.
2 days before the summer started, and we were able to fund everything.
Wow.
But it's like, again, people could give up and be like, I'm done, right? Mm-hmm. Or are you the type of person that just gets up and makes it happen? You just find a way. And it's funny how it just seems like you always, if you don't give up, it seems like you always find a way.
Absolutely, right? It's that whole, putting it out in the universe and however that works. You're right, it does work. And I love the message there too, is that there's not just one way. I think so many of us get caught up in, I went to the bank and the bank said no, or SBA is, impossible to go down that road. I mean, there are other ways for businesses to be financed. And we have talked about that on previous podcasts. And it's fascinating. There's so many resources out there if we look for them.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what you did.
That's exactly what we did there. It's like Dish was almost the easiest company, my first one.
Of course. Isn't that the way it usually is? I don't know. Maybe not.
But yeah, Pest. And then that one went well. We ended up selling it. And then we started another one and I sold that one. That one was with Brian Haney again. And we sold that one off again. Pest has been a fun one, but it hasn't been my favorite of all those companies. It was just one I knew, understood. Yeah, man, I really like the construction world. I've loved MD. That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's funny.
And I think that skill set of being able to relate with people, that's why I like sales, being able to So one of the things I noticed with BioGuard is I had a really solid plan. I knew how I could get people their return. Mm-hmm. But you have to be able to pitch it. You've got to be able to sell people on what's funny is selling Dish. So we were a dish retailer, right? Our pitch was so awesome. When you're selling Pest, you're actually the most expensive because you're paying sales reps, and because you're paying sales reps to go out and market, you cost more than all the other companies. So you're talking people into why they should pay more to have your service. And you can do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But with Dish, every single customer was saving money. So we were going to a DirecTV customer, hey, we actually giving them everything they had with DirecTV for usually $300 to $400 less a year.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer.
No-brainer, except the average rep only sells 2 a day, so he's getting 50 no's.
Yeah. So what's going on?
Then what's going on literally is customers just don't believe you. They don't trust you.
Oh, yeah.
It's not that they're like, what's in it? What's he really trying to get at, right? They just don't believe you. And so that's no different than having a killer plan that you know will make money, and you go to a bank or you go to angel investors and you're trying to get them to invest in your company. If you're not really good at getting them to trust you and believe what you're telling them, they will shut down a million good ideas.
Well, isn't that what it is? They're buying you.
Yeah.
I mean, the product is kind of secondary in some situations, isn't it? Because really, if I can look at you, I know that you you can deliver by evidence of so many things. I'm willing to take a chance on that.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is, I think, why some more unscrupulous individuals have been able to take advantage of people, like think about Theranos, like that, where that went and how much money was there. So that's not the good example, obviously, but it is an example of they believed in that. The product was kind of secondary, believed in her.
Well, it's funny because it's a skill set every entrepreneur really, really needs to develop. They need to really think through it, and they got to get good at it. And if you're not good at it, you need to hire someone that is.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that's where you surround yourself with the right guys. Notice where your weaknesses are and hire those people. I think that's been another skill set I've been really good at in the past, actually, is I've been really good at knowing what I suck at.
Well, and we will continue to talk about that because I really do want to dive into that after we take a short break.
Okay.
Hey, listeners. We hope you're enjoying today's episode of Entrepreneur Voices. This episode is brought to you by Oswald Service and Repair, the trusted name in automotive repair and service since 1939. Learn more about how Oswald Service and Repair can keep your car happy and healthy at oswaldserviceinc.com.
Okay, well, welcome back. Now, talk to us a little bit more about hiring the right employees, because I think especially as business owners, we're always, sometimes a warm body is just better than nobody. And so what has it done for you to just pause and say, no? I mean, and realize too, like you said, I can't do it all. I got to let go of a few things.
Well, I think our overhead garage door company is a perfect example of that. So he was overwhelmed. He'd hired a lot of cheap employees. We went in and looked at actually what we had, and we realized we didn't have any of the very best installers. We had a couple good employees, but we didn't have any of the very best. We realized that management was weak, and we had no cash. So overhead was another one that showed they were making $600, and when we actually figured it out, they were losing $300 to $400 a year. So it was the same scenario.
Yeah.
And Brian and I, with no cash, made the decision to hire a CEO, and it was well north of six figures to bring him in. We actually got the CFO of a medical company that had just sold.
Okay.
He had just sold it, and we were like, bro, we'll give you 10% of the business. We'll pay you X. You need to come in. You can own it, da-da-da-da. And we brought him in, right? And now we have a guy at the top that we know understands numbers. He was a CFO before.
Yeah.
We knew he would be able to manage the details of the business. And then Brian and I looked and we were like, dude, who's the very best installer? We started asking. They were six figures. All these guys are six figures. Brian knew a guy that was selling wood, 6 figures, probably 2.5 times what the overhead was paying for sales. We brought him in. We brought Mike in to be our CFO and CEO. We then went after another guy, actually. And again, this was the top installer around. He was doing all the commercial installs at the time. And we just knew Dev was the man. And so he's expensive. But we brought him on. So now we're basically you take away the guys we had there, you add this, we're probably another 200,000 upside down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. Not everybody would think this way, to be able to be like, well, let's just go more. Let's just make it bigger.
Dude, we were like, we have to be the best. We have to give people a reason to want to use us. Otherwise, you get stuck like every other small company out here playing the price game. Oh, I'll do it for cheaper. I'll do it for cheaper. Let's be the cheapest. And no one makes money. They're all broke.
Right.
And we don't want to be getting that game. We want to charge a fair price and give people the very best experience. It took a year. We lost about $800,000 that first year, turning things around.
Because you'd lost clients?
No, it was just we were paying more because we hired the best. We didn't just get Dev. We got like 3 other top guys. We went after the best everywhere. And now our sales guys, who were awesome, sweet. He can be an awesome sales guy, but how long does it take? And especially in construction, I get you signed up. Now you have to build your house to get ready. So you're 6 months out, right? And so it was just, we built the foundation. We set the goals where they needed to be at a break even. And by, I wouldn't say the whole year, they just lost a ton of money up till about September last year, that first 8 months. All of a sudden we were humming. And from September of last year until now, we've doubled anything they've ever done every month. And it's just humming. And what's crazy is all the contractors now are like, dude, we love your guys. Dude, the experience has been so much better. The contractors are like, bro, this is night and day from what it used to be.
Yeah.
And then they're referring people. And it's like our sales guys are just, it's mushrooming.
Yeah.
And we've been over that break-even hump now for quite a while. And I mean, this year we're trending already to definitely be positive. And I think we'll make good money this year. I don't want to say where it will end, but I think they'll do really, really well. But we had to take a step back and say the foundation's not right. It's going to cost us money to build the right foundation. Mm-hmm. And what's our leeway going to be? And we kind of calculated out, and we missed it by about 3 months. It took us 3 months longer than we thought to flip it. Mm-hmm. But lucky us, we had the money to invest back into it and actually get through that. But you have to open your business thinking that way.
Yeah, right.
Like your business plan should account for what you need to be successful. And I think sometimes we just think too small. This is a lesson learned actually when I sold my company to Dish Network. That was my dish retailership. 2012, Charlie Ergen, at the time he was like the 19th richest guy in the world. He was worth $21 billion. He bought the company, and I would go meet with him now because I was a CEO of one of his companies, right? So I'm in a room with him, and I brought one of my employees with me. And Charlie went over to my employee and said, "Hey, do you have any questions for me?" And he asked a brilliant question. He said, so this kid was younger. He was only 25.
Okay. And
he goes, "Yeah, actually, I do. Charlie, is there anything you regret? If you could go back to when you were 25 and you could give yourself any advice, what would you have told yourself different that you didn't understand then?" Charlie goes, "My dream has always been to be the richest guy in the world, and who knows if I'll ever make it." But he goes, "My biggest regret is when I was 25, I thought $1 million was a big deal."
Uh-huh.
And he's like, "It took me till I was 40 before I started thinking big, and I just didn't think big enough. I should have been thinking in the billions."
Wow.
And I'm like his CEO at 35, just sold my company, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm an idiot. Like, I'm that dude that just thought $1 million was awesome.
Well, it's because why wouldn't you? Yeah.
And so what's interesting about that is when you start thinking big, like, how do I become $1 billion company? Now, all of a sudden you start looking at your whole company different. Mm-hmm. MD's been that way. We're like, dude, enough of this. We don't want to be 20 million. How do we become a $150 million company? Mm-hmm. And that's like what we're focused on is like, how do we make this thing huge? Because bigger doesn't mean you're more prideful. Bigger means healthier. It means you can help more people. It means you have more means to make a bigger impact in the community when your company is healthy, big, and strong. And sometimes we limit ourselves by thinking small.
Yeah.
In fact, as a sales rep, I think we did that. I remember, this is so old, right? Guys do like 1,300 accounts now, so that they're going to listen to this podcast and start laughing. But I did like 600 accounts and was the top guy I knew of in the nation at the time. What was crazy though is like guys, before that guys were like, dude, you can't break 500.
Yeah.
You can't break 500.
Yeah.
And then a guy comes along and he breaks 500. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, he did 500. Mine was my roommate. He's the one that broke it actually. And I'm like, dude, if that guy did it, I can
totally
beat him.
Do it. Yeah.
I'm better than him, right? And so then I hit 600.
Yeah.
And then I quit, and all of a sudden a guy does 750, and then 800, and then 900. And it's so interesting how like now I look at it and I'm like, why did I only do? Like, I'm an idiot.
Because that's what you were told that's.
I was told that's the bar.
It's the same story about running the mile or whatever, right? It'd never get below 4 minutes, and then your heart was going to explode or whatever, but it didn't.
No.
Yeah.
And so
we just had to push.
That's it.
One of the things too I hear about you is about the profitability, and I mean you're talking some big numbers that would blow people's minds. But the bottom line of the thread that I keep hearing is, it's not at the expense of customer service. That is actually what the driver is, that you are seeking to do the very best. And I don't know about you, but in my experience with customer experience in general, it doesn't take that much to just step a tiny bit above and really blow people's minds, because customer service is not important anymore.
Oh, you got to be the best. I think I'm just not a believer on being the lowest. I think you got to be competitive and then be the best.
Yeah.
And that's when you make money. That's when you're healthy. I feel like all the guys, even when they're big, when their goal is to be the cheapest, like Walmart's the only one I know of that actually that's like way successful at that.
Yeah.
Everyone else, it's like they're on the verge of like, they're always
bankruptcy.
Like, dude, I never make any money.
Yeah,
I never
right.
make any money. It's so tight. Yeah. It's the dumbest business model.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not giving people the best experience. Like, just give people a great experience. That's one of the things I loved about MD is that, like, they're the ones that do a lot of the Grand Targhee. We do, like, Huntsman Springs. Like, we do the nice stuff.
Right.
And it's just awesome
Mm-hmm.
being part of things that are great.
And people are willing to pay a little bit more for that service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm that way. I'll pay more. I won't get ripped off, but I will pay more 10 out of 10 times for someone who will really take care of me. I like things to be nice. I like things to be taken care of, clean. And like I got a call actually yesterday, and I don't even know if I should be talking about this, but it was Madison, the baseball fields, right?
Yeah.
And dude, you go to the lowest bidder. And they're like, it's 2 years. We can't use our baseball field. Is there anything you can do to fix it? And in my mind, I'm like, you just pay a little bit more and it's done, right?
It would
and
have
you
been.
don't have to worry about all this. But
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, for young entrepreneurs, I would make sure you don't limit yourself with your business, because it takes a lot. The best way to explain this is, so MD is growing like crazy, but you don't grow without taking risk, and that risk has cost to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so MD grows like crazy, but it has to make, and I'm not even going to say the number, but way more than you think to even be at break even.
Right.
Like in the millions it's making in profit to be at a cash flow break even.
Mm-hmm.
On paying its debt, its taxes, and not
all
even
your
bring home
equipment,
a dollar.
all of it, yeah.
And then when you buy more equipment, it's 30% down and more debt. And it's just learn how to think big, learn how to be patient, learn how to look at things long term, and you won't have those odds of 2 out of 10. You'll flip it.
So is that your advice in managing growth? You know, if I'm a company that I am on that verge of I could grow, I could grow. It's take the risk, get in, dive in.
Dude, I'm a risk taker, so I've lost as much money as I've made. My businesses haven't failed, but I lose my butt sometimes.
Yeah, right.
With bad decisions, right?
With buying a $20 million company that's
so
not making any money.
And I think that's the biggest thing between an entrepreneur and someone that just isn't built for it. Maybe you go buy a franchise because you don't have that risk.
Yeah.
I'm not risk averse. It's exciting to me. I've always been excited to go after the big win. And everyone's got their thing. But yeah, for me, I think I have been, and people could call it stupid, but I do go after it. This one right here actually was a perfect example of that. We have the
tell
medical
us about
patch.
that.
So,
yeah.
So in this one right here, I'm upside down about $4.5 million.
And here's the other thing. Has anybody said to you, just stay in your lane? Like, what are you doing in the medical field and in the landscaping field and in all of these
I'm
other
all
things?
over.
Yeah.
So 2010, or 2012, Dish buys my company. My best friend in MBA school was a Marriott Hotels. It's the grandson.
Yeah.
And he ran their manufacturing plant. He built tech. He calls me and he goes, Mike, I'm working on one of the coolest things. You need to invest in it. So he introduces me to these two inventors. And what happened is the Department of Defense. So if you go back to all movies in 2012 and before, when they have like a team of Navy SEALs get deployed, there's always a guy with like a 5-foot antenna in his backpack and this backpack full of batteries.
Okay.
And they were trying to figure out how to shrink that down.
Okay.
So these guys had shifted the antenna to work on electrical fields instead of magnetic, and they shrunk it down to the size of a credit card.
Okay.
In fact, they'd actually got it to be a spray paint, But the guys, it was so hard for the soldiers to paint it on their helmet that they ended up just putting it into like a card.
Uh-huh.
And then they would put it on the soldier's sleeve. Well, I invested. So I put in just under $1 million into that. And these guys started doing their thing. What eventually ended up happening a couple years later is when they were putting this on the soldiers, they were picking up signals and they couldn't figure out why because they hadn't plugged it into the radio yet. They were like, what?
What is this?
So they start figuring out that it was the body. So the body's electrical. We're not doctors. We don't know this.
Yes.
But the body's electrical and everything was communicating through electrical frequencies.
Yeah.
And the patch, when it was close to their body, was in that electrical field and was interacting with what was going on.
Wow.
So long story short, cut out a bunch of stuff. We invented an antenna that intercepts pain and allows it. It's like a lightning rod. So when the energy or the frequency, when these nerves fire off, they create frequency of pain and it hits our antenna.
Mm-hmm.
For like 85 to 90% of people, when it hits the patch, it's easier for that frequency to go into the patch than up to the brain.
Huh.
So we give it almost a separate highway out of the body.
Wow.
So people will put this on and they're like, oh, it's heating up. As soon as they say that, I'm like, okay, watch this. Their pain's, it's gone. And it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
I
so
bet.
we started to notice this. And so I approached them and said, hey, I don't want to invest in this. I want to take this to the world. And so we started a company and we started messing with that tech and we ended up building these pain patches.
This is signal relief?
Signal relief, and it's like the coolest thing ever. I mean, I had, my first client was actually Mike that I bought MD from. We were at he has this old car garage in Sugar City. It's full of antique cars. Like there's one there that President Monson always used to come and sit in with him, and then there's the old Herbie car he got from John Huntsman, the original Herbie.
That's
and it's
awesome.
a cool place.
Yeah.
But we're sitting in there, and he like can't even get out of his chair. His
Back
back's
pain.
hurting him. That's why he wanted to sell the company. His body was falling apart.
Sure.
So I gave him, it didn't look like this. It looked like what it should look when it's barely being built. But he puts it on his back and gives me a voicemail that night. In fact, I still have it on my phone. And the voicemail was just, I've kept it because for me, this was when I was like, all right, I don't care what I'm dumping into this. This is changing people's lives.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
And even if it's one person, it's worth it.
Oh, this is my first company that's not about money at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I wake up every day because I'm so excited what it can do for people. Because it takes people who think they can't do anything anymore and changes their whole life in minutes.
So I know
It's so cool.
This is a little off track, but I've just thought about this as we've been talking. You've got all of these companies doing all these different things. I can't even imagine the amount of employees that are involved in all of this. How did you ever manage employees on your own, or was it always, I know this isn't my forte, I'm going to hire somebody to do this?
I ran Dish One Satellite for 10 years. And then I started to realize what I was good at. It took time for me to realize what I was good at and what I wasn't. I realized that I'm really good at creating concepts. I'm really good at looking at the numbers of where we need to go. I'm really bad at sitting in an office and at a desk. I get bored I came up here to teach entrepreneur. I came and taught entrepreneurism for 2 semesters and I went nuts. So
that wasn't your thing.
It's just, so I've realized what I'm good at. And I've gotten better over the years at hiring good talent to actually handle this. So when I first started this, I had a guy, Zach Sutton, he's a local, did an amazing job. He helped actually develop it, bring it to the world. We have the Jovi patch for women too.
Oh, yeah.
It takes menstrual cramps.
Yeah.
That's my signal.
Okay.
So Jovi's our other one. And Zach did that for 5 years. And then we hit a wall where I realized his skill set wasn't what we needed to go to the next level. And so then we actually went and I talked Dan Marriott, who owned and ran his own the guy that built it.
Yeah.
We talked him into hiring a different guy to run his company and coming over to run this. And that's what we needed to go to the next level with the doctors and what we were actually working on. And so this just started launching you'll see commercials a lot on TV with it. It's going nuts. And so we lost money on this for 5 years doing clinicals and trying to get it ready. And then we just about a year and a half ago went all in on it. And it's been
that
awesome.
was probably a whole new world to have to go to, because is it FDA approved?
we're going through that still. This is actually doesn't have to be. It's a health and wellness device. But now this is where I'm going to go. So if I wanted to make millions, I would stay a health and wellness device. But this is $1 billion product.
So you'll push through. Yeah.
And so to be FDA'd, it's costing us millions. Like the testing, the trials, everything it takes. But that's ultimately where we know we need to go, because that's when it can be in every house in America. Yeah. Is when insurance and Medicare and everyone takes care of it.
Yeah, right.
And it's, I mean, there's no side effects, right?
Yeah.
You're not having to put anything in your body. Like, this is actually rad. Like, I got to let you listen to Mike's voicemail. He's like, hey, man, I don't know if I can get more of those, but like, actually, I'll just put it on here because it's too cool. It's too cool.
I know those things are really, really hard to get, but I was wondering if I could buy like 3 or 4 of them. I mean, I got a buddy that I gave him mine just to put on his back, and he's walking around with a cane, and he's 10 minutes. He says, I don't feel any pain. And anyway, and then I got Jerry Jacks. He's a temple sealer. He's got neuropathy so bad he can't even, his feet. I was thinking if I got him a couple of those and then I want mine back. I let Tony use mine.
I was like, dude, this is so classic.
Oh, I love it.
And then right after that, I'm like so excited about it. And I go to a football game. And I had a high school buddy. He's one of my best friends in high school who had moved to California, and he moved back and I didn't know it. But when we were in college, he got his leg sucked into it. You know, a Yellowstone log? Yeah. He'd sucked his leg into a wood chipper or a stump grinder and lost his leg. Well, we're at a football game and my boy's scoring a bunch of touchdowns and he's noticing Hammond on the jersey. So he goes up to my boy at the game and goes, hey, is your dad Mike? And my son's like, yeah, that's my dad. And he's like, where is he? And so I meet Matt. And he looked like a guy who had been dealing with crazy amounts of pain. Sure. Like he didn't look like the old Matt. You can just see it, the heaviness, a little bit the weight, right? Yeah. And I was like, how you doing? He's like, dude, my leg kills me. I was like, dude, why don't you come back to my office? He's like, no, he's a nurse. He's like, no, I'm doing everything. I'm like, what are you doing for it? He's like, well, I just had a $100,000 pain pump installed. It pumped morphine into his spine. That's what got him through every day. He's like, but dude, I'm still in so much pain. I was like, well, bro, you got to come. He's like, nah. And I showed him Mike's voicemail. He's like, oh, maybe I'll try it. So he comes to my office, and coolest thing ever. I grabbed the patch. I put it above his knee. 10 seconds, his shoulders are shaking. He looks up, tears are coming down both eyes. I'm like, you okay, man? He's like, dude, I don't have pain. And I look over, and his 2 twin boys, which were in, at the time, I think, the 7th grade, they're bawling.
Because they've probably never known him without.
Dude, never seen their dad without pain. And it was in 10 seconds. And there's no opioids. And it's just the coolest thing.
It is the coolest thing.
And so, I see that, and I'm like, all right. Like, I wake up every day, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing. Like, we're figuring this one out. And it's probably the highest risk of anything I've ever done, obviously. And you got to do it right, but it makes a difference. It's cool.
Well, it's been fun to learn about all of the things that you are involved in, and, just hearing about the signal, wow, we wish you all the very best, and we'll be looking to see how it's doing, and definitely when we see it, be like, hey, we've heard this story, and we, we'll be a cheerleader for how that goes. I have, just one final question for you to kind of ponder. Looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently in your journey, or has it just been a blast and you wouldn't do anything different?
There's a lot I would have done different. I think that Charlie's advice to my guy is actually the number one lesson I've learned through all those years. I wish I could go back to 2004 and looked at my business as different. I don't know if I would have even gotten to Dish. Actually, I probably wouldn't have. It wasn't a big enough idea.
Think bigger earlier is where I would have thought
bigger earlier. And And I already believed it back then, but I think a lot of people have really good ideas and they let themselves talk themselves into why it won't work.
Yeah.
Stop looking for reasons why it won't work and start looking for reasons why it will. This is why I love entrepreneurism. Everyone at BYU Idaho, it's a disciple training university. You're supposed to go in the community. You're supposed to make a difference. Nobody makes a bigger difference than the guy at the top who controls the culture, what your company represents, how you take care of people, and what kind of a difference that company's going to make.
Yeah.
And I think entrepreneurs have they have the ability to leave a massive imprint in society and everyone around them. And so I think more BYU Idaho kids need to follow their dreams. I think a lot of us settle and we're never really happy. And I don't think there is a perfect job. Like all jobs suck. Like even my jobs.
It has its
I haven't
down
slept
things.
for, so many sleepless nights, stressed out. But you have the ability to go and make a massive difference. Don't talk yourself out of it. You're way cooler than you think you are. And you're more capable than you think you are. And once you realize that or you allow yourself to go down that path, things become a little bit easier.
Yeah. Great advice. Love it. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to learn about your story and to hear all of the great advice and experience that you've had. We appreciate you being on the show so much today. And there's a lot to think about. And for myself, as we're looking at our next steps, and I think you've taught me a lot today. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Entrepreneur Voices. We hope you gained valuable insights from Mike's entrepreneurial experiences. And thanks for being a part of our community.